Hello there and welcome back. I'm your host, Stephanie Michele Sweigart. I'm here today with SpeechTherapyPD.com. I have the great pleasure to introduce our guest today, Jessi Andricks M.S, CCC-SLP. Thank you, Jessi, for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I was excited to bring you on as a guest as we're moving into 2023, because I know you've got some great strategies that you're going to share with us to set us up for greater well-being and mindfulness and all kinds of wonderful things as we're moving now into the 2023 year. I think it's important to kind of point out, I think a lot of people are going to relate to this, but I really appreciate your story about how you've kind of moved along in your career. You know, you came out of grad school and you got started in a SNF. You moved into a hospital setting. At that point, I think you said you wanted to, I got this from your course I listened to, you wanted to engage in yoga teacher training, which I think is so very cool. So you brought that passion into your life, just another hat for you to wear, like your mom hat, your SLP hat, all these hats. At that point, you transitioned into the school-based setting.
Mhm.
And this is the interesting part. You were like, hold on, maybe this career is not for me. And you left, right? You took a 5-year gap and you said, I'm done with this. I'm going to let my license go, you know, that license that you worked so hard for. And how many people, especially right now, if you go through these Facebook forums, are thinking like, I'm nervous to enter this career. Am I going to make the right choice? Or did I make the right choice? Or, you know what else can I do right now with my career? Because I don't think this is for me. So I think that's so cool that that's your story and you're back in the field now. It's like the vortex or the black hole of speech pathology sucked you back. Where are you practicing now?
So I am actually back in the schools. I came back in 2016 to work in teletherapy because I wanted to do part-time, and that was like not as obscure as it had been in like 2011 and 2012 when I was ready to leave. So I worked in teletherapy with virtual schools, K through 12. And then over the pandemic, I took a break, and I have very young children, so we were just home. And then just this, like in June or July, so over the summer, there was some openings to just help out as much as you could in the school system to help out with the pandemic and everything with COVID and being backed up. And so now I'm there for the school year now, and back in the schools where I like swore I would never be again, but with new approaches and new tools, and just so far really enjoying it and loving it.
Okay, so that's what we want to know. We want to know what's the secret, because you are the guru of all things mindfulness and well-being, and you have a cookbook, so cool, and you're into yoga and all. And being I'm in California-based SLP. That's our thing out here. Like, we love all those things. I don't know about the Midwest or the East Coast so much, because you're on the East Coast, right?
I am North Carolina. Yeah.
Yes.
We're learning to love all those things.
Great. Perfect. So we thought this would be the perfect time to bring you in to talk about those things, because I know that you have a course on SpeechTherapyPD.com called Managing SLP Stress with Mindfulness. So, and that brings up another point, because you mentioned teletherapy. Were you part of the teletherapy reboot? Was it called teletherapy reboot?
Yes. So I was part of the like emergency one that we put together, or that Speech Therapy PD put together right in March of 2020. Yes. And then a year later for the reboot.
Yeah. That's the first course I ever watched on SpeechTherapyPD.com. And because I think everybody was like, we need this. And I'm sure you know this, but how cool are you right now? Because I think it mentioned that went into the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest number of attendees. Would you have like 40,000 people?
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Woo-hoo! That is so cool. Like that's amazing. So how cool that you got to be a part of that. I watched it. I loved all the segments, and I loved how you guys didn't know you were going to have that many people on there, and you were all so comfortable. You were sitting in your homes. It was like, it really humanized things. And I think that was so awesome. It was a great day of PD. So thanks for that. But let's get back to your managing SLP stress with mindfulness. The golden question that we have for you today, though, we really want to get some answers for our listeners is, what are some tips and tricks to finding balance between work life and home life?
Yeah, that is probably the question that I get asked the most. And one of the things I see the most, like on social media, just people asking this question or trying to figure it out. And so one thing I like to think about before we get into like the actual tips and tricks is, like, we tend to think of work-life balance as being 50-50, like perfectly balanced, like we're on like a balance beam or something, and we're trying not to tip off on either side. But it's really more like a pendulum, or like if you think of it as like being on the peak of a mountain, even, it's being able to slide down one side, but then know that you can climb up and slide down the other side.
I love
So
that.
yeah, so it's always going to swing. One side is going to take up a bigger percentage for a little bit of time, but the balance part is that it's not going to stay there, that it will swing back. So family time might take up a lot more of your time than work, but then sometimes work may take up a lot more time, and it's always going to fluctuate and change. So when we strive for that 50-50%, that's where the guilt and the stress and all of those like feelings of I can't do this, because it's not realistic, and
That's
it's
great.
never going to stay like exactly in one place.
Can you come up with a graphic for that? I feel like that should be like your thing, a really cool
right?
graphic. These are all the ways you can balance. I love that.
Right? That would be great. But so when we know that, the things that we can do, some tips and tricks. So the first one is one that we know, and it's just so hard, but to look at our boundaries and to set boundaries. And the way we can do this a little bit easier, or again, taking the stress out of setting them, is to just be very clear and upfront with ourselves. Because often we make the boundaries and then we blur the boundaries. So we have to start and keep them and really set them within ourselves, so that then we can say, yes, I'm doing this, and then let other people know, like then be able to tell our family, this is the boundary, this is this time,
with conviction.
yeah, and know that we are not going to sway on it, or be able to tell our supervisors and work that no, this is a boundary that I have set. And so the things that we can do with boundaries is to just have clear, honest work times and home times. So being really realistic with yourself and not saying, like, well, I will always do this boundary, and this is, I'm going to come home from work right at this time, if you know that it's going to take you 10 or 15 more minutes than that. Because again, it's that like setting yourself up for stress up front, right? If we're realistic and we know we're going to need to get in 10 minutes earlier than we want to, or stay 15 minutes late, if we just set that's our boundary, it takes the stress away from it, and it doesn't feel as like hard and as guilty and like we're overworked, if we just know like those little moments we're going to be there, and realistically that's what's happening right now.
Love it.
And then setting that like that's work, home is home, the two are not going to mix. I know though, at times we just have those moments where it's that balance, that work is taking up a heavier portion. So one way that we can work with that boundary is saying that you're not going to bring work home every day and have it sit there in your bag staring at you and not working on it. And then you feel that like, oh, I feel so guilty, I'm not doing it. So then you're thinking about that work, but you're trying to be present at home, and then you just feel more stress. But saying, okay, like Thursdays, I'm going to come home and I'm going to, if you have kids, like I'm going to get the kids to bed, and then I'm going to take 30 minutes to do that paperwork on Thursday nights. And so that's your boundary, because it's clear and it's set, and you know that it's happening and it's scheduled. And so you are there on it. So as much as we can, having those clear boundaries between the two, but then knowing the season of life that you're in, that sometimes they might blur, but if you've got it scheduled and you've got it set, then you know when to expect it and when to hold the boundaries around it. So that's tip one. Tip number two goes with it. And tip number two is to try and be present where you are. So oftentimes at work, we are thinking about the things we need to do at home. And then when we are home, our brain is still thinking about the things that we are, all the work that we still have to do and all the things that are coming up and how stressed we are. And I think it's more so when we're at home, we're thinking about work than necessarily the other way. So this is just that our body has moved away from work physically, like we're not there anymore, but our brain is still there and we're still thinking about it. So one thing we can do to help be more present is to have like a transition or a routine or something that you do at the end of your workday that lets your brain know it's time to shift and it's time to leave work.
I like
So
that.
yeah, so like sometimes we think it's like, okay, yeah, I'll gather all my materials for the next day, but that is still like very work related, right? So something that is not related to your work, it could be like very elaborate or it could be like very, very simple. So, maybe you're someone that loves going on a hike or going to the gym or taking a yoga class. And so that's what you do if you have time to do it. Like that's your transition. You go and you move your body a little bit and then you're home after that. But it could be that you just like have a podcast you listen to, or you call your best friend on your commute home. Or if you're doing teletherapy and you're already at home, maybe you have like where you go make a cup of tea or you like step outside for a few minutes to get some fresh air. Just something that is a bit of a routine and that lets you kind of signal to your brain that, okay, we're switching out of this mode, we're decompressing, and now we're going to be home.
Yes. And I love how you pointed out, in case people are working at home, all of movement, all those things, you could still do it in your home, but that kind of signals that now we're transitioning to home life. And I think for me, mine is I have to close my computer and I have to get my daughter. So my going to pick up my daughter from school is my ritual every day. So that's where I'm like, okay, now I'm disconnected and I'm in family zone. So, but I love how you point that out. If we can find that one thing that can come up every day just to kind of remind us, and it creates that good, healthy habit to get into that mindset, and it will just start to come naturally.
Yeah, it does. And when we're present, when we're able to focus on where we are instead of being like pulled and thinking about something that's coming up or what we didn't have time to do or something that like a meeting that didn't go well, all of that, it causes so much mental exhaustion. And when we're able to be present, it's like time feels like it expands a bit. It's like when you're watching a movie at home. I talk about this in the course on speech therapy PD, but when you're watching a movie at home and you've got like your laptop on your lap, or you're like, kind of distracted, you're doing like two things at once. You've got like Facebook open on your phone, you're watching the movie and you're like following along and you're like, oh yeah, that's a great movie. Like that was a good time. But when you're in the movie theater, it's like, it's dark. You cannot have your phone out. There's no laptop there. If anything, the only thing distracting you is your snack that you have with you. But it seems like that movie takes up like your entire day. And, if you go to like an early movie, it's one of those when you walk out and you're like, why isn't it dark out yet? Like, shouldn't this have taken up my whole day? And it's because you're so present to what you're doing. So when we feel so short on time, if we're present, it gives us that feeling that there's more time there and we're more in it and enjoying it. So that's tip number 2. The third one is to check in. And to check in with yourself, because so much of the time we just keep going, especially with our work, right? There's just so much to do that we kind of try and plow through our day to get through as much as we can. And then we're in that mindset. So we plow through our evenings to do as much as we can. And it just builds up this feeling of rush, this feeling of stress and push. So if we can check in during the day at work, but also check in, in the evenings to see how we're doing, it gives you time to process the day, to, notice how you are, because maybe you have had to talk and do a lot of sessions and you are feeling just like overstimulated and you need a few moments of just quiet, and 5 minutes of quiet, you feel like you reset. Or maybe you had a day with a lot of paperwork, so you feel mentally just exhausted and you need to get up and move and feel more energy. So taking a moment to just pause and maybe take like 5 to 10 breaths and just see, how am I? Am I tired? Am I feeling overwhelmed where I can't think and I can't process anything that anybody is saying to me right now? Or, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? All of those things. It can do so much to help you find more of that balance and to feel more present and just more enjoying where you are more in your day.
Yes. Oh my gosh, these are amazing. And these strategies are right up my alley because I love when, there's so many different teachers that can teach on the same topic, but I think that it is the personal stories and the transformation and the changes that come from the speaker, like yourself, that you're in your course, you keep it so real. Like you dare to say things that I think some people want to say out loud but don't. Like, and I quit the job, or I'd rather be I think you say I'd rather be pouring coffee, right? At like a coffee shop. It's just, I love it. And I think that that's what makes each course so unique, when you have like the individual personality of the teacher and the strategies that you're sharing today. These can bleed into our personal life, these can bleed into our professional life. So I love strategies that can go into all of those areas and that we can exercise. So thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you for just all the work that you're doing, just waking up the world, waking up speech pathology and all of the clinicians to this idea that we can take better care of ourselves. We can have greater wellness and better health. And here's the ways we can do it. So thank you for taking that gift that you have and sharing it with all of us. You heard it here from Jessi. Jessi, thank you so much. If anybody wants to take a deeper dive, be sure to check out Managing SLP Stress with Mindfulness. This is on speechtherapypd.com. And as you heard, she has some other great courses too. So if you are not a member and you want to access the free course, check out the information below. You can go ahead and do that on speechtherapypd.com. Sign up for a 1-year subscription. When you do this, you're going to get access to courses like we're talking about today and so much more. I think there's over 800 courses and counting, live and on demand, available for you with industry leading experts who are going to build your know-how and help you really just step up your game. So be sure to check that out and grab those ASHA CEUs. We will be back here next week as we are answering more of those golden questions that SLPs and SLPAs are asking, and we have the answer for you. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.